In the back. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you all for being here. I'd like to call our regular meeting of the Town Plan and Zoning Commission to order. Today is Monday, July 1st, 2024 at 6:35 p.m. My name is Robert Klee. I'm the chair of the Woodbridge Town Plan and Zoning Commission, and we have all of our members here today, so I'll run through them. We have Paul Schatz, Ben Cherry, Kathy Hunter, Yoni Samir. We have Andrew Skolnick, Jeff Kennedy, Aaron Hoffman, and Cynthia Gibbons. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you to Chris Sullivan, for our town land use analyst and zoning enforcement officer, for being here. Thank you to our first selectman, Mika Cardozo, for being here as well. Nice to see all of you. Our agenda tonight has been posted on the town website. Tonight we have two public hearings. One is for Nicole DeAngelo, doing business as Miss Nicole's Creative Learning Center at 11 Research Drive, where they are seeking a special exception permit for a child daycare center. The other public hearing is for the cleanup of our town zoning regulations for the town of Woodbridge. We have some new business, which includes a 8-24 referral from the town regarding 7 Forest Road, also known as the theater lots. And we have some additional work in our work session, including a joint meeting of the, or a presentation from housing specialists from SCROG, jointly with the members of the Town Housing Committee. So a packed agenda today, though before we get started, I wanted to give Wei Liu of 111 Luciani Road 5 minutes of public comment as requested regarding the continuing work at 110 Luciani Road. And I see, Wei, that you've also submitted written comments. Thank you. Please, when you go there, make sure the microphone is on and just state your name for the record.
Good evening. Good evening. Is it working? Okay. So my name is Wei Liu. I live at 111 Luciani Road. I want you guys to listen the noise from 110 Luciani construction site first. So this noise is from June 11, 7:56 a.m. They supposed to start from 8 a.m. So I reported to the Town Plan Zoning Commission. Why I'm doing this? Because I can't stand even 1 more minute of the noise. On May 15, 2023, the permit said they would minimize noise impact and only work from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So this is not minimize noise impact. You guys already heard. On May 1st, 2023, it was approved on regular meeting and the constructor promised site work could take 3 to 4 months, but could go faster. Right now, it takes more than 1 year. Triple the promised time, and they still are hammering. Because their construction, the water flows down onto the street in the winter and is frozen even to 80 Luciani Road. In front of my mailbox, the road is full of ice from the side. My husband and I have a serious health problem, and we can't stand the constant 9 hours every weekday's noise. We have to go to the Woodbridge Senior Center and the library every day. I want you guys to go to my street and listen to the noise and understand my pain. Because of escaping the noise, I even stay at my parents' house for 2 months. I want to know why the Town Planning Zone Commission allowed to renew the permit. I want to know how long the hammering will continue. I want to know the deadline of the hammering. Tell me how long they can do this for. It's been way too long. We are suffering too much. They are ruining our life. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. So, folks, we can take this up in our discussion, our work section. Is that appropriate, Chris?
Yeah, because you've got things to do.
Okay. Thank you. So next on our agenda tonight is an application for a special permit exception according to section 3.3 M11 of our zoning regulations for a child daycare center at 11 Research Drive located in Development 2 zone. Is there anyone here from the applicant who'd like to come speak? Okay, thank you. Are you?
I know she's on, Nicole's on vacation, so I'm the daycare director.
Can you
Yeah.
come up and
But
sit?
do you guys need the paper with her signature, saying that I can represent?
You can turn it into me.
Yeah, that can go to Chris. So if you could introduce yourself, state your name for the record, and then go ahead and with your presentation.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Alexa Trensky. I am the director at Miss Nicole's Creative Learning Center. We currently have one location in Orange. Thank you for taking the time to hear our proposal this evening to approve the location at 11 Research Drive, Unit 1 for daycare use. We are a child care center and pre-K program who serve children from 6 weeks to 5 years old. Again, I will be representing Nicole and Kevin D'Angelo. They are on a vacation that they had previously before. They've had it planned for about a year now, so I'm here representing them. We are asking that the commercial property located at 11 Research Drive, Unit 1, be approved for child care and pre-K use. Our intention is to build a small child care and pre-K program that follows our mission to produce a safe and creative educational environment that emulates the extension of home. Miss Nicole's Creative Learning Center started as a home daycare in 2015, expanded to a small center in 2018, and we are currently looking to branch out to a second location in Woodbridge to serve our demanding waitlist. After a preliminary meeting with the fire marshal, he has advised that a fire suppression sprinkler system must be installed prior to his approval for childcare use, as well as a monitored fire alarm system. We are currently taking steps to ensure that this is completed prior to our final application with local officials and the Office of Early Childhood. In addition to speaking with the fire marshal, we have already completed our water testing and have been in contact with Quinnipiac Valley Health District. We have put together the required information to apply for childcare use approval. An architect has created plans that include demolition, floor plans, egress, and ADA bathroom requirements. With these plans, we have also hired a licensed contractor to move forward with local building permits in order to convert current office spaces into classrooms. We have also been in close contact with our state licensor, with the Office of Early Childhood. Philomena has been our licensor since 2018 in Orange and has recently been assigned to Woodbridge as well. She has been supportive of our quest for expansion and is excited to see this potential new location come to life. Moreover, we have established educational, health, dental, and social consultants at our current location in Orange who have agreed to join us in Woodbridge location. Additionally, our extracurricular contractors have also agreed to join us as well. These include karate, music, yoga, and a social emotional clinician. We are planning to use the ground floor as well as the upper level mezzanine for classroom space. On the lower level, our intention is to have one infant, one 1-year-old, one 2-year-old, and one preschool classroom, all under 3. On the upper level, we intend to have a pre-K4 and pre-K5 classroom. As most of you, I'm sure, are aware, the state has changed the entry age of kindergarten from having to be 5 by December 31st to September 1st now, which proves that there is now a need for childcare programs to serve children who are the year 5 years old, who don't make the kindergarten cutoff. Our school will follow a curriculum that is closely aligned with the Connecticut State Developmental Standards from September through June. We will host many exciting events such as a fall festival, a Friendsgiving, a Polar Express Day, Cultural Appreciation Day, prom, and much more. In the summer months of July and August, we will conduct an early childhood summer camp with fun events such as field day, an ice cream truck visit, field trips for those who are 3.5 and older, special visitors, etc. For playground use, with the permission of the landlord, we are planning to install 2,100 square feet of 4-foot fencing and 8 feet of impact material in the back parking lot. This would no longer be accessible for cars to drive around the building. Since 2018, we have successfully run a 5-star Google-rated childcare and pre-K center in Orange. We believe that we will be a wonderful addition to the town of Woodbridge. 11 Research Drive is conveniently located off of the Merritt, which proves to be a great location for a child care center as it is easy on and off access for parents and caregivers working in the surrounding areas. With the new age restriction for kindergarten and our current Orange Center being limited to 45 children per day, we have discovered that we are in much need of a second location to serve the demands of our current ongoing wait list, as well as currently enrolled families who need childcare for their unenrolled siblings. Adding a second location in Woodbridge, less than 15 minutes from our Orange Center, will provide our present families, as well as those on our wait list, an option for a center that serves not only infants, toddlers, and preschoolers, but the new need for a pre-K-5 program based on the new entry age level for kindergarten. Thank you again for your time this evening.
So, thank you very much for your presentation. At this point, I'm happy to open it up to members of the commission if they have questions for the applicant.
One clarification question, or just maybe for my education. You
Yeah.
mentioned 8 feet of impact material. What is the 8 feet?
So it's just like what the state requires. There has to be like, if it's on like pavement, like because it's the asphalt parking lot right now, there has to be 8 feet of impact material, such as like underneath swings or like underneath a slide in case a child falls and gets hurt. It's just their requirement has to be 8 feet.
8 feet deep?
8 feet or 8 inches?
8 inches. Oh,
Oh,
my
okay,
gosh.
all right,
Hello.
all right, yeah, oh, no
I'm so
problem.
sorry. Hello. I'm like,
So-
wait a minute. As you said
yeah.
that, I'm like, wait a minute.
We were envisioning a ball pit.
Yes.
Like really.
Yeah, like as you said that, I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
Yeah,
are
no,
the
I'm
children
sorry.
going to
They
drown in the
require a
impact
minimum of
material?
8 inches for impact. So if they were to fall off, it's like scooch off the slide, or if they were to fall off a swing, or if they were on a little playscape and they tripped over, that there's impact material.
Thanks very
Um,
much.
Yes,
I know a lot of families will be grateful to have more options in the area, so thank you.
for sure.
And I'd like to follow up on Ben Cherry's question. You mentioned, and I think I see this in one of the schematics, but and so the area where the outdoor space is going to be behind.
Yes, so
The building.
I apologize for not having them like as like a printout for you, like a blueprint, but directly behind the building, it like kind of is a parking lot that like goes around the building. And when you first turn on the street, there's like a dumpster that's directly to the right in the back. The landlord is allowing us to block off that area so there'll be a roundabout, and it would be directly behind the building, fenced in.
And the fencing is one of our requirements in
Yes.
our zoning regulations, that it,
Yes,
there'll be a fence that basically screens off
yes,
that playground area.
yep.
Other questions from commission members?
Just wondering, how many children are you serving?
At the hopeful for the Woodbridge or the current one?
No, for this
So-
proposed plan.
So we are hoping for 64. Right now with like the possibility, because they have to take square footage away for like counters and like refrigerators and all that good stuff. So as of right now, with the current layout that we have imagined, it'll be approximately 64. We're hoping 32 over 3 and 32 under 3.
And again, I have somewhat of a sense of this particular building.
Yeah.
How do you have plans in place for managing pickup and drop off, which are normally the busiest sort of moments for
Yes.
for a daycare center?
Are you asking like in regards of like efficiency, like quickness?
Or cars and movement, or is everyone parking and they come in and get their kids?
Yeah, so typically what we've done since COVID at our Orange location is we have a school greeter who is, she meets the parents at the door, we say quick goodbye, they get checked in, all of the things. It's a very fast, efficient way of dropping off your child. We would do the same thing, so they would park up front. The building that is, I apologize for not knowing the number, I don't know if it's 13, the other end of the building, their hours are not open as early as we would be open because we would be open at 7. So like our drop off time wouldn't affect their schedule. And then for pickup, it would be the same thing. We have a communication tool that we use called Bright Wheel, and they message when they're on their way, and we get them ready, packed up, and we meet them at the door. So it's a pretty efficient way for pickup and drop off.
Is the area where the vehicles go off-road?
So there's a pretty large parking lot that they can park in, and it is also a dead end. So I in a worst case scenario, I guess they could loop around the dead end and they could park right in front of the building and not block traffic or anything. But there is a good amount of space in the front of the building.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And so what is the square footage of the playground area? Is that 2,100 square feet?
Yes, it would be 2,100 square feet.
And is that complying with the requirement? I thought you needed 75 feet per child, or does that factor in the age?
So it's all age dependent. So like
Okay.
it would be the it would be split down for like our under threes, not including infants, of course. It would be like our under threes and our over threes. So the over threes would be a little bit bigger than the under threes because there would only be 8 children outside in the under threes playground at a time and no more than 20 in the over threes playground at a time.
Any additional questions from commission members?
The commission would just indulge me for a moment. I'm just curious to know as to if this is specific, the special exception is required as a result of the particular zoning of this area, or would it be required regardless of where it was in the business district?
I think we require it. It's a good question. We're at 3.3
M1.
M1, and there is a typo that it says
Yeah.
11. For child daycare centers, there's special exceptions across the board everywhere we allow them.
Everywhere.
So we're requiring a special exception permit regardless of what zone we're putting it in.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for that presentation.
Of course. Thank you.
So now I'd like to move to the public comment portion on this public hearing on this special exception permit presented by Nicole D'Angelo, doing business as Ms. Nicole's Creative Learning Center, 11 Research Drive, with a special exception permit pursuant to 3.3 M.1 of our zoning regulations. The public hearing is for the purpose, you can
Okay.
sit,
Oh,
yeah,
wait.
thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. The public hearing is for the purpose of listening to your comments. Anyone who would like to come up to give public comment will have up to 3 minutes for your brief statements into the record. The TPC members and the applicants will not be answering any questions you raise, though your public statements and any written comments that were submitted to the town will become part of the public record for the TPC's consideration of this application. As a reminder to everyone, off-the-record communication with a member of the commission on the merits of this application is prohibited. So I ask those who come forward for public comment to keep your comments brief and focused on the proposed special exception permit, and try to avoid unreasonable repetition so we can hear all of the concerns that you and your neighbors may have. So I now open up for public comment. Is there anyone who would like to give public comment on the special exception permit from Ms. Nicole's Creative Learning Center? I will ask again if there's anyone who would like to come for public comment. And I ask 3 times always whether there's anyone who would like to come forward for public comment. Chris, did we receive any written comment?
We did not.
And we did not receive any written comment. So thank you. I would now entertain a motion to close our public hearing portion of the application for a special exception permit.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Ben, you're sitting for this one, I guess? Or wait, no.
No. He's a full member.
He's a full member, sorry.
He is sitting.
You are sitting, great.
Yes.
Everyone's here, so it's throwing me off a little bit. So moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion to close the public hearing? Hearing none, all in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? There are none. Thank you for the public hearing. Thank you to the commission for being good listeners, asking good questions. Thank you to the applicants for your presentation. And thank you to all for being part of this process. We will make our decision on it during our, we have to wait to our business. So yeah, Chris is
Yes.
looking at me saying I have to wait to vote on it into our later in the evening. You're welcome to stay if you'd like. Alrighty. Next up is our second public hearing of the night. It's a public hearing on the cleanup of the zoning regulations of the town of Woodbridge. These have been posted on the town website for this meeting. There is no former applicant, so I will just offer some general comments. Sure. That this has been a long process that members of our Planning and Zoning Commission have participated in for more months than I am going to actually officially recall at this point, in an effort to clean up our regulations that were originally promulgated in July 1st of 2019, which when they were issued, unfortunately had a few, what would be at that point called Scrivener's errors and tables that were referenced but didn't exist, or figures that pointed to the wrong thing, or other sort of elements in the spirit of needing cleanup. Plus, there were some elements that were holdover from another town's planning and zoning regulations that didn't truly apply to the town of Woodbridge. So in this, we engaged a consultant, Greg Chalder, to go through with just an eye to making the regulations make more sense, because on occasion, and since I've been here as chair of planning and zoning, we would have applicants come to us with highlighting those types of issues that they found when trying to understand how much parking was required, let's say, but they pointed to a table that didn't exist, and those sort of examples kept coming to us, so we thought we would try to do that broad cleanup at once. Plus, in this cleanup, it incorporates some changes we had made to the regulations in the year since these were issued in 2019. Plus, it made the actual document now more easily managed, searched, and edited for the future. So that's the sort of overall spirit. So this is, generally speaking, not a substantive changes to our zoning regulations, but really an intent or a hoped for improved clarity, improved usability, and a good now foundation for going forward to the extent we want to change and update our regulations in the future. Members of the commission, anything in addition to add? Seeing none, hearing none.
So the first thing that we need to note is that we did forward this to the South Central Regional Council of Governments for comment. Under state statute, they are supposed to receive them 35 days in advance. We were shy of the 35 days that they were supposed to have to review them, and so you do have before you that was distributed draft staff recommendations regarding the text cleanup that you've done, but that it has not formally been acted on by the Regional Planning Commission. That will not happen until their meeting later, I guess it's next week. So they have asked that you continue the public hearing to be able to formally receive their comments. So that's what I have to say.
Yes. So we will have our public hearing tonight. We will open it up to public comment unless...
If there's anyone here to speak,
Sure.
certainly.
Then, just for our procedure, should we have discussion in our business
You
meeting
need,
yet or no?
at the, whenever you're finishing this part of the hearing, you need to, at that point, state whether or not you're going to continue it
Right.
to another date. Because this is an application, in a sense, that you have made, there is no time frame for completion or action on it. So you can choose to hold a special meeting if you so desire, or you could continue it to your regular meeting in September, whatever you choose to do.
Okay. But to the extent we wanted to have any discussion this evening, should we do that?
No,
We should wait until...
you have to wait till the
our
hearing is
continued-
concluded.
Gotcha. Okay. So this will be more efficient. It'll be quicker than I thought on this part tonight. So, so I would like to then now move to our public hearing portion of our self-applied application for the cleanup of the zoning regulations of the town of Woodbridge. So I'd like to open that public hearing, and this hearing is for the purpose of listening to your comments. Anyone who'd like to come forward will have up to 3 minutes for your brief statements into the record. The TPZ members and applicants will not be answering any questions that you raise, but your public statements and any written comments that were submitted to the town will become part of the public record for the TPZ's consideration of this application to clean up our zoning regulations. As a reminder to everyone, off-the-record comments that are submitted to the town will become off-the-record communication with a member of the commission on the merits of the application is prohibited. Please keep your comments brief and focused on the proposed special exception permit, and try to avoid unreasonable repetition so we can hear all the concerns you and your neighbors may have. So are there any members of the public who'd like to come forward to give public comment on the cleanup of our zoning regulations? I will ask again, is there any member of the public who would like to come forward to give public comment on the cleanup of our regulations? Going once, going twice, third time. Would anyone like to come forward to give public comment on the cleanup of our zoning regulations? And seeing none, I'd like to then entertain a motion to continue our public hearing to allow us to receive the formal recommendations of SCROG. Do we need to pick a date at this point or no?
You should, yes.
I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing until our September meeting.
It's been moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. So the motion is to continue our public hearing to our next regularly scheduled public hearing in September. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passed. So we will continue this public hearing until next month, at which time we'll receive the formal response of SCROG. And that also means that it does remain open for any written comments, which I don't believe there have been any submitted. Great. Okay. We're kind of right on time. So next up on our agenda is actually new business before we get to our work session, because I do see that we have members, I think, of our housing committee or for that joint session. We're almost there. But our new business, we did receive an application, we did receive an 8-24 referral from the Board of Selectmen regarding the purchase from the state of Connecticut by the town of property located at 7 Forest Road, which are also known as the theater lots. Is there anyone from the town who'd like to present this 8-24 referral?
I think it was delegated to me by Tony Genovese.
Chris,
So just so you
thank
know, these are very small parcels of land that were actually given away through movie theaters a long time ago. And in and of themselves, they may have been a place that you could picnic, but they weren't big enough to be able to put a house on. The town over time has acquired many of these, and so the particular one that the state is offering to the town would complete an area so that there would actually now, without any inholdings, be an area that would be compliant with the size for a legal lot in the residential A zone, which then the town could decide whatever it chose to do, whether to sell it, whether to have it developed on its own. This potentially could be a housing opportunity, as a parcel that the town owns that could be developed. So when it first came up, I said we should go for it because it is a logical thing to do. So that's all I've got to offer to you.
Are the existing lots that the town already owns grouped together not large enough?
This is
For-
kind of an in-holding in amongst them. So we need this to make an area that would be. There have been at least one, perhaps two houses that the owners assembled enough pieces to make a, quote, lot to build a house on. So this would be something that the town would now have.
I apologize. Where is this?
It's in between Park Lane and off of Pease Road, so it's just before the bend where Jeremy Garden comes in. And if you look at the online mapping, you'll see all these little tiny pieces.
So which piece is this on what we have?
I don't know.
It should be a number 7.
It's number
Should be a number
7.
7 on there?
Yeah, they're very small pieces.
This is a 7.
It looks like there's a 7 that's,
Yeah.
That's the one here?
Yes,
So that, okay.
That's it.
so you can
The ones
see,
that are, the ones in your diagram that are bolded, the bold are the ones that we do not own. The ones that are dotted lines and connected, those are the ones that Tom does own.
any additional questions of Chris as surrogate for the Board of Selectmen?
and Mika too.
And Mika too, I guess.
Is Forest Road paved?
It is not.
No.
It is not. It appears, and the access to this appears to be what I've heard referred to as a paper road.
Yeah.
There's no direct connect from a particular access, so there's more that would need to be done in terms of that, but to my knowledge, it is not.
It is, no, it is not. I haven't been there in a long time.
How did the state end up with it? Did someone will it to the state?
I do not know,
Yeah, it could be. I'm not sure.
unless they
And
bought a movie
The
ticket.
purchase price was $1,500.
Yeah.
I'm even just confused by the origin story that somehow movie theaters were
Yeah.
giving
Well,
these
you
away.
know,
They
like, a
raffled
long
them.
time ago, they used to give out dishes and other things, and apparently the
property.
big draw at one of the movie theaters was a parcel of land in Woodbridge.
That's crazy. Any further questions? Now, Chris, if you could remind us in an 8-24 referral, what is our sort of,
You're supposed to find it in compliance with your town plan. And if you don't do something positive, the Board of Selectmen can overrule the zone.
yes.
Do we do that now or in our work session?
I think you can do it now
think we
and
can do it.
just get it done with.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to find it in compliance with our town plan.
Second.
So moved and seconded. The motion in front of us is a finding that this purchase of one of the theater lots by the town at 7 Forest Road is in conformance with our town plan. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Go forth and add this small theater lot. All right. Thank you all. We're now shifting to our work session, and I'd like to thank all the folks from the Town Housing Committee for joining us today. Do they need, because they're all together, to formally announce that they're here, and/or is there a process by which they, are they having a meeting?
They're having a
It's a
meeting,
special
and I
meeting.
believe Kathy can just call her portion of the joint meeting together as chair.
Do I make a motion to open the meeting, or,
However you normally open your meeting, you just open it, don't you?
okay?
Special cheer.
Well, I hereby open this special meeting of the Housing Committee for July 1st, 2024. Does that work?
Thank you. So we are now in a joint meeting of the Housing Committee and the Town Planning and Zoning Commission, and we would welcome up the South Central Regional Council of Governments to present some of their information on housing in support of our overall efforts towards the plan of conservation and development. Yes. So please come up, introduce yourself, and
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
if I might, I just want to, point of order, I just want to make sure that there was an agenda submitted and the meeting was noticed in regards to the housing meeting,
Yes.
housing committee. Thank you. Thank you very much. Sure.
Good evening. I'm David Fink. I'm Sprout's housing policy consultant. I've been in that position for about 5 years. Before that, I was policy director of the Partnership for Strong Communities for 14 years. Before that, I was a newspaper man for 27 years and was government editor and reporter at the Current 17 of those years. And I appreciate you inviting me. I'm glad you guys have gotten together. I have never been a zoning commissioner, but I've been before dozens of zoning boards, and I know you have a hard job. So we at SCROG have decided over the last 5 years to help towns in the region. For those of you who don't know, we have had, the first 2 years, we had monthly generic sessions for Housing Work Group. People from Woodbridge and all the towns in the region have come to those sessions. They've been about generic topics, about housing creation. The third year, we helped all the towns in the region create their affordable housing plans. The fourth year, we began to tailor sessions specifically for particular towns' needs. So towns that had commuter rail, we did a session on TOD, for instance. Towns that had needed to create housing in areas where there was no sewer or water. We brought in experts about the latest in wastewater technology. So that was the 4th year. The 5th year, this past year, we have done a few different things. We took a tour of the agencies in the region that provide services to people who become homeless. We took a tour of 4 different configurations of mixed income housing in the region. Townhomes, single-family homes, mixed income development, infill, congregate, just to show them. We made a video that's available to all the towns. Every session that we've had over the 5 years has been videoed. The materials, the articles, and the videos of all those sessions are available to every town in the region. So there's a great kind of critical mass of information that's available to your town and all the towns in the region. I should tell you that all of them are considering their housing needs, what they have, what they need, very importantly, where to put it, and how to get that done. We are aware that towns need help. And most towns in the state, if they have a planning department, that planning department is one planner. They don't have the capacity to create it, and they never have. Most towns have never had to proactively create housing because of the way they developed. I mean, Connecticut was, mostly rural towns, and some guy would come in and buy a 40-acre cornfield and say to the zoning commission, I want to put up 40 colonials on 1-acre lots, and they said, fine, and he built them in about 18 months, and they sold them in 6 months, and everybody's happy. And that's how most of the towns in the state developed. So towns have not ever had experience. Most of the cities have. But most towns in the state haven't had experience in proactively assessing their needs and deciding how we're going to meet our needs. Therefore, they don't have the capacity. And that's okay. So we're here to help in that way. So towns, all towns in the region we're meeting with, they all have different needs. They all have different demography and geography and politics and housing markets and history. So we're there to help, and we have different ways of doing this. So I appreciate you inviting me tonight. I just got done in Hamden this afternoon. They're going to plan a town-wide meeting, and a number of towns in the region are doing that. There are other ways to do it, and we can talk about that. So what I wanted to do was just say a few things. I have a fact sheet that includes some information that you know, but some that you may not know, and just the basics on housing in the state. We can go through that, and then I'm happy to take whatever questions you have. We at SCROT never tell towns what to do. It's not our place to tell you what to do, and we likely don't know enough to tell you what to do, even if it was our place. So, but we will tell you what other towns are doing, and I'm happy to do that, and because towns are doing a lot of different stuff. My advice generally is that if you have housing needs you decide you want to address, you have to do that slowly. Because residents typically they understand less about housing creation than most zoning boards do. And they need to understand, and they need a chance to understand. That's fair. It's a very controversial issue, as you know. And I have never been one in about 23 years of doing housing policy that blames people for having worries and concerns. It's not irrational for someone who spent more money on their house than they spent for anything else in their lives to worry about who's moving in down the block or into the neighborhood, into town. It's not irrational. Now, they may be operating on some misinformation about, whatever we've all heard, school costs or traffic or crime or whatever. But they deserve to have their concerns addressed. They deserve to have their questions answered. My experience has been, and I'm sure you've had the same experience, people tend not to listen to other people until they feel as if they've been heard. And it's good to do that. I know that the town has begun to have community conversations, begun to build that and allow people to kind of understand the issues and talk to each other, and that's important. A lot of towns in the region are doing that. Over half the towns now are having community conversations that the SCROT facilitator is facilitating. So that's the advice, to go slow, and you need to listen to people. So I'll take you through this fact sheet. Chris, I'm wondering if you can just make this. And like I say, I apologize if you know some of these numbers, but I've tried to
Yeah.
get them up to the latest. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and Chris will make sure that's posted on the website if it isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
And then I'm happy to, I wanted to say a couple more things, and we can ask me a few questions. I'll try to be done in about 15 minutes. So the first item, housing is the largest average household expense. I think a lot of you know that. It's about 32% on average in the United States. Transportation is the second largest expense, 19%, but if you live within a half a mile of a mass transit, that 19% goes down to 9%, and that 10 percentage points is important. So a lot of towns, if they have a bus node or a commuter rail station, they try to put the housing there, and that makes everything more affordable for the people who live in it, both in the market rate units and the income restricted units. And as you know, if you can live in a town that has high resource schools and many services, that's good. That can help you and provide opportunity. Second, an affordable home is one where you spend no more than 30% of your income on rent or mortgage payments. When I was getting my first apartment, I'm sure your parents told you the same thing. My parents said don't spend more than 25% of your monthly income on rent, so you have some money left over. And HUD puts it at 30%. But the basic idea is you want to have money left over for food and clothing and transportation and health care and child care and all the other things you need. The problem with that is we have a lot of people in Connecticut who are burdened by their housing costs. Being burdened means spending more than 30% of their income on housing. Statewide, the numbers are 48% of renters and 32% of homeowners. In Woodbridge, it's a little bit higher, 55% of renters are burdened, a little bit lower, only 30% of homeowners. So, you know, needless to say, if somebody's making $1 million a year and they're spending 40% of that on housing, they still have $600,000 left over. We wouldn't have to pass a plate for them. But you know, when you get it down into the lower income levels, moderate income levels, it's a problem. And it's a problem not only for them because they don't have a lot left over for, you know, a new coat for Junior who just grew about 4 inches in the last year since the last winter, but it's a problem for local merchants because they have less disposable income. And it's really a problem for the state because the state relies on sales tax revenue and people have less disposable income to spend on goods and services. So being burdened by your housing costs is not a good thing. Most burdened are people, ALICE households. United Way of Connecticut has copied about 15 other United Ways around the country. They do a study they've been doing it every 2 years. ALICE stands for, it's an acronym, Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed. These are people who we used to call working poor. They go to work, they have Sunday dinner, they try to keep it going, but in Connecticut, the United Way comes up with a survival budget. It's about $126,000 for a family, a household of four, and about $39,000 for an individual. 140 of the 169 towns in the state have greater than 20% of their households as ALICE households. They're invisible, we don't see them, because they're going to work every day and they're doing what they do, but they're there and they're living on the edge because a busted carburetor suddenly forces them to choose between paying for health care, or a bus pass for Junior. Woodbridge has a lower percentage, 12%. The housing wage is something that's calculated by the National Income Housing Coalition. It's what you need to earn in a state to afford a typical two-bedroom apartment. The housing wage in Connecticut just came out last week, 2024 numbers. It's $34.54. That translates to $71,000 a year. That used to be a lot of money. $71,000 a year just earns you a typical two-bedroom apartment in the state without having to pay more than 30% of your wages. There are over 600,000 workers in Connecticut who earn less than the housing wage. So those are the people who tend to be burdened by their housing costs they can't afford. Connecticut has the 7th highest median monthly housing costs in the nation. What you should know is, that's because demand exceeds supply. The housing market took a huge hit since the beginning of the pandemic. Between 2019 and 2023, single-family home prices rose 60%, a little under 60% in Connecticut. That pushed a lot of people at the low to moderate end of the purchasing spectrum into the rental market. That drove up demand in the rental market. So rental prices went up about 20% in that 2019 to 2023 period. And that ripple effect caused people at the low end of the rental market to miss the rent and got evicted or didn't make the rent. And so homelessness in 2023 went up 13% in Connecticut. So we have a real supply problem. We're not the only state in the nation that has a supply problem. It's all over the country. Let's see what else I can tell you. Yeah, as you know, median sales prices in Woodbridge have not been immune. The latest I checked on Zillow was in May. They had it at 641,000. I don't know if that's exactly right because all these companies measure it a different way. But they had, after that huge run-up from the beginning of the pandemic, they had year-over-year Woodbridge prices were up about 11%. There are myths and misconceptions that people believe. Like I said, I don't blame them for believing them because they hear a lot of this stuff on TV. So they believe that multifamily housing causes a huge increase in school enrollment. That's not true. Rutgers did the research. It's been replicated. Anecdotal evidence all across the state shows that you don't get a lot of school children from multifamily housing. What Rutgers found has borne out. A one-bedroom multifamily unit gets 0.04 public school-age children. In other words, 4 in every 100 one-bedroom units. Makes sense when you think about it. How many parents are going to live in a one-bedroom unit with a child? Not many. In 23 years, I've seen that one time. Two-bedroom unit, 0.27 children. In other words, about 1 out of every 4. And again, that's intuitive. That's going to be grandma who wants a second bedroom for the grandkids when they come for the weekend, or 2 singles who are sharing a 2-bedroom apartment, or a young couple that wants a second bedroom as an office and for guests. 1 out of 4 tends to be a parent and a child. 3-bedroom multifamily units, you get 1.38, Rutgers found. And that has been replicated over and over, and again, I can provide you with all the data on that and anecdotal data. I mean, Mark Barnhart in Fairfield, who's Director of Economic and Community Development, has a deal with the school department and has charted every single year of the number of school children that they get from multifamily development. And they've created about 1,000 units there, and it's been less than what Rutgers has found out. But anyway, doesn't lower property values. MIT did that research a long time ago, and that's been borne out. It's not unsightly. It does not cause traffic. I know a lot of people say that, and then I'm sure they're not trying to mislead you. That's what they heard, but it's not true, and it's been shown not to be true. So, moving on, why towns create a wider range of housing options and income-restricted units? Well, mostly to increase property value, as you know, and the grand list. Towns in Connecticut can't levy an income tax. They can't levy a sales tax. They're dependent on property tax revenue, and developing property is a way to do that. I just met with the new mayor of Wallingford. He asked me to introduce him to a couple of developers because he says, I have property and I need to develop it because I need revenue and I need to expand my grand list. In that way, housing becomes economic development. It provides customers for merchants, and it tends to spark more commercial development. It allows baby boomers and the elderly to remain in the town that they love. A lot of people are demanding, and I don't know if you saw, Orange just created 46 beautiful units off of Route 1. That's going to be largely for elderly residents who want to downsize. That's the point about housing. People have different stages in their lives. When you're out of college, you rent, and then you buy something small, and then you buy something larger, and then maybe you buy a vacation home, and then when you hit 65 or later, you don't want to shovel the snow and rake the leaves anymore, so you want to downsize. And that's how the housing market really changed in 2010, because what happened in 2010 was that baby boomers my age really started to escalate the number of people in that baby boom range. They wanted a multifamily unit. Their children, millennials, had a lot of college debt. They'd had a lifestyle that was not to have a 4-bedroom colonial with a white picket fence. They wanted a multifamily unit, and suddenly the stars aligned, and everyone wanted multifamily housing, and a lot of towns just didn't have it. And that's what's spurring this, so this is not a temporary thing. There's going to be continued demand for multifamily housing in all the towns in the state. Other reasons, some towns and residents of towns want their adult children to come home and to the towns they grew up in. They don't want to just see their kids for Christmas and Easter. They want to see them for Sunday dinner and their grandchildren. And they want to attract younger workers and families to town because that's who volunteers for town boards and coach a Little League team, and you need some of those people. And a lot of towns have wanted their teachers, their public safety officers, others to live in the town that they work in. Finally, the 830G statute, you're probably familiar with that. That is now about 32 or 33 years old. That basically says to developers that if less than 10% of a town's housing stock is guaranteed to remain affordable, a developer can come in, override the local zoning, and the burden of proof is on the town to show that a development with at least 30% of income-restricted units would threaten public health or safety. And if the town can't prove that, the developer gets to build what he wants. So just a couple of things to add. There are a lot of ways to move ahead. Like I said, if towns ask me, I basically say no matter what your needs are, it's best to go slow and make incremental progress, but make progress and have a plan. Because I think the residents have the right, I think that they are owed the opportunity to be involved every step of the way and to have their questions answered. There are many ways to do it. You can do a wholesale rewrite of your POCD and your zoning regulation, or you can go to the other extreme and use the incentive housing zone legislation, which is essentially the legislature's creation of legal spot zoning, where you can just put an overlay zone, in an area where you think you can handle more density. There are ways to create resources. You have an affordable housing committee. Guilford just created an affordable housing commission. You can, in addition to have a planner, you can have an economic and community development director in this region. Hamden and Fairfield have terrific economic and community development directors who get up every day thinking about what housing do we need, where should we put it, how can we creatively help finance it, what developers are good who are going to build us a good product. But you got to have somebody, if you want to create housing in your town, you got to have someone who gets up every day and does that, because you can have a great zoning enforcement officer or a great planner, but they have other things to do. And you need capacity to have someone do that sort of thing. So towns are looking to do that. You can invite developers to town. Like I said, Wallingford asks for developers to come in, and they come typically into a town. I've done this for a number of towns, and I tried to introduce them to developers who not only build a great product and have great track records, but also tend to be vertically integrated. They have their own property management firms. So when they build something, they continue to own it. They don't sell it off. It's an investment for them. They want it to continue to look nice, so they manage the property, and that's a better way for towns to go with developers who are going to build in that way. So you can invite a developer to town, and typically towns will identify parcels. They'll say to the developer, we're thinking of parcels A, B, and C, and the developer says, well, A looks pretty good, and B, maybe C, forget about it, have you thought of D and E? Because developers also have a really good sense of where different products are going to be successful and what the market is, because they're typically putting up their own money. Like I said, I think continuing to educate developers is really important. I mean, residents is important in answering their concerns. Not everybody's going to get on board, but believe me, there hasn't been unanimity in any town I've gone to. There are always going to be some people who are upset about this, and they have a right to be heard, but you're not going to get unanimity. As far as what we can offer in terms of types of meeting, and I'll end with this, there are some towns, I don't know what Sprague towns that have done, but I've done meetings where you have the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Education, and the Planning and Zoning Board all in the same room at the same time to hear the same questions and the same answers, because a lot of what they do is dependent on each other and affects each other. That's one way to go. Another way, like I said, is have a town-wide meeting. I've done those. I did one in Madison. Like I said, we're planning one in Hamden. We're going to do it probably in Guilford. I've done it in Guilford. where you come and you answer questions and you bring some other experts there and you stay as long as people have questions. And as long as people want to be heard. Because like I said, they want to be heard. They're not going to listen to anyone until they've been heard. So we've done townwide meetings. We're going to be meeting with economic development commissions because as you all know, the governor's talked about 100,000 jobs going wanting in the state. In a lot of towns, local merchants are having a hard time finding, filling jobs. And the reason for that is that the guy who used to drive 5 towns over and spend the time and the gas money to get to a job in a town, he can find that job in his town now. He's not driving 5 towns over. So you've got to have people living in your town for that. I was just in North Branford. Honeywell has a big facility there. They're going to create housing there because Honeywell needs workers. And it's a pretty rural town, as you know. Last thing I'd say, there are several good videos that you may want to take the time to watch. I'll send them to Chris and to Mika. You can watch them in your own time, or you can we'll get together and have popcorn. But there's one really good one we did of the 4 mixed income developments that we visited in October. We created a video of that. There is a great webinar that Northern Valley COG just did about the relationship between school enrollments and housing creation, which is, to my mind, a definitive work. And this past Wednesday, like I said, we videoed Mark Barnhart from Fairfield and Peter Souza, the town manager in Windsor, who were both provided leadership in their towns for housing creation, and they talked about how they did it and what they did and the little tricks. They didn't call them tricks, they called them methods to get housing done. All instructive. Each of them is only about 40 minutes long, and to the extent that you need that information, they're there for you. So I'll send those links to Chris. That's all I have. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I really appreciate you inviting me to come.
Thank you, David, for joining us tonight. I'll open it up to Planning and Zoning Commission members if you have questions for David. We also have our housing folks here as well. I don't know if they would have questions too.
They do.
The problem is we need to make sure that you have a microphone, so because we're for recording as well. So let me first start with the Planning and Zoning Commission folks, and then we usually have a microphone over there, but we don't today. But then for the Housing Commission, I'll have you come up to the center mic, if that's okay. But first, Planning.
So on all the data you cited, is there one source or are there multiple sources?
There are multiple sources.
And can you share that?
Sure. Do you want me to go through?
No, maybe you could send it to Chris, and when you send the video around,
yeah, that's fine.
include that. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then one other question. It seems like a couple of times you mentioned objections regarding school.
Yeah.
So is there a study regarding hypothetical towns that have already busting at the seams with schools and how they addressed it?
Already busting at the
Seams with schools.
Oh.
School enrollments, let's say it's at 99 to 101% of capacity, and how this factors into that.
Well, multifamily housing tends not to. Like I said, doesn't produce many kids. I don't know that the real production of public school age children, generally 5 to 19, are single family homes. So if you have a lot of single family homes, especially either building them or they're changing hands and new families are moving into town. But if you reach a tipping point where you need modular classrooms or a new school, there's not a lot of ways around that. And I'm not an expert on handling enrollments. I just kind of know what the different types of housing configurations produce.
Along those lines, Paul, what I can offer, excuse me, what I will say is that I know that there are analysis that look at the costs of school-age children in different scenarios. So, for example, if your school enrollment is going down and the costs associated with the students in a scenario like that, you don't need more teachers, you don't need more room, you don't need more administrators, things of that nature. There's one cost. if you are in a scenario like you described, where the next step is going to either bring you to a new building or bring you to new resources, there are analysis that show that, and I'm sure that we can get those. Scrog was the one who brought them up.
This webinar answers that question.
So it's not necessarily specific to a scenario, but it's not specific to a growth scenario in terms of a school that's expanding, but you can get a sense for what it costs differently if you're in a situation where you're going to need more teachers versus you have enough space. Because the cost of adding, for example, if we add 4 kids to Beecher Road School right now, the cost of doing that isn't the same as it would be if we had to have a new class as a result of adding 4 new kids. That obviously. So, but there are analysis in that, and that'll help us in terms of getting that, David. And I'm sure it's from Scrog, so I'm sure we can get that.
Other commission members with questions?
I have a question. On the, first of all, thank you for coming today. On the housing wage issue,
Yeah,
so 600,000 workers don't make the housing wage in Connecticut.
yeah.
In Connecticut, we have what, 2 or 3 million people that live here?
It's 3.6 million people.
3.6, okay.
I
So-
think it's about 2.3 to 2.4 million households. I think there's about 1.6 million workers. So we're not saying 600,000 plus people are homeless or on the street.
Oh,
We're
no,
just
no,
saying
no,
they're
no, that's
paying
far
way more
along.
than they need to pay
Understood.
for housing. or
But like a third of the workers don't make enough money to buy a 2 or 3 bedroom.
to rent a two
rent it to
bedroom
them.
apartment.
And would it ever be assumed that those people would live with other people? Like, if those people were children, or would, like, if you had a couple living with each other, each person made $50,000,
Yeah, sometimes.
it would be more affordable,
Yeah.
right, to buy a 2 or 3 bedroom?
Yeah, I mean, if they could afford it, but housing prices are up 60%, rents are only up 20% since the pandemic. I mean, it's just that, you don't have enough supply. And supply would solve a lot of problems. I was in West Haven the other day to meet with some of their zoning commissions. They have a blight issue. They have landlords, out-of-town landlords, who don't care about taking care of the properties, and they would like to go after them. The problem is, and this was a catch-22 I learned long ago from the housing commissioner in Hartford, was the town could go in and condemn those properties or threaten the landlord with condemning them unless he fixes them up. Well, what is he going to do with the families living there? They're going to become homeless because there's no place for them to go. If you have enough supply, then you have some leverage over that landlord. For these people, and that's where we're in competition for jobs with other states. If you can, you're a young guy getting out of graduate school and you can, make $75,000 a year and still afford your BMW, you'll go to Atlanta or North Carolina. You're not going to come here because you're not going to earn $75,000 and afford housing and afford your BMW. So, housing is huge because it's such a
Look,
huge
I see
part
it too
of
in this respect. So a lot of people in Woodbridge, including myself, that purchased before a home, before the pandemic,
Right.
and put down a modest down payment,
Right.
and interest rates were very low, might be paying $2,000 or $3,000 a month or $3,500 for mortgage, right?
Right.
But if you go out and get a 1 or 2 bedroom now in a lot of the area towns, that's how much it is every month.
Right.
And so I
interest
understand
rates are
there's
higher.
that tension there.
That's the other problem. There's no churn in the market now because
There's
a lot of
none.
those baby boomers don't want to sell because where are they going to go and what are they going to buy with interest rates so high? So
Understood.
that'll help solve it, but we need more supply all over, not just Woodbridge.
Can I ask, in terms of terminology, I think there's a perception thing that I've observed in the time that I've been serving on this commission and the other commissions and in working in the housing field is that the concept of the term multifamily housing, I think, brings with it for the average person who pays some attention but not a tremendous amount of it, brings to mind the idea of like putting up an apartment building with however many, couple dozen units, 50 units, whatever, and a bunch of families are moving in, packing up the place. And in Woodbridge, the perception is that, we're going to have to spend some incredible amount of money to expand our school and hire a bunch of new people and hire a bunch of new administrators and all this kind of thing. And I think that's an understandable public perception that comes from the very term multifamily housing, right? And so what I heard you to be saying is typically a developer who's putting up a building, what you're seeing a lot of, and I heard your explanation and I appreciated it, of the 1 to 2, and on the outer rims 3-bedroom.
Right.
You know, and I think you also said go slow, right? And I think we've been going very slow, and extremely slow, like glacial pace slow in this state, which hopefully is a good thing, because it's given an opportunity for everyone to participate who would like to, you know, have their voice heard. But I think there's a persistent perception, and I just wonder if you have any further comment on that, right, on this concept that you say the term multifamily housing, and immediately in the average conversation, it's like, well, you're going to bring in a bunch of families, and our taxes are going to go up, right?
Yeah. You know, we had down at the partnership about 10 years ago a woman named Julie Campoli, who was a fellow at the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy up in Cambridge. You know, they're kind of have a sister relationship with Harvard and the Joint Center for Housing Studies there. And she did a book called about density. And what she said about density and showed with great photos was it's not the density, it's the design of the density. And she showed two different, you can build them out of cinder block and pile them on top of each other and have no landscaping and no trees and no, you know, design additions, and it'll look like crap. And it'll fit people's conception. You know, people think about Cabrini Green or Pruitt-Igoe or Father Panic Village were the worst, you know, failed experiments in public housing post-World War II. But that's not the way it looks now. And we got a million examples, which again, I'll send to Chris. We have great photos of great developments all over the state, mixed income, in a lot of wealthy towns. And it is the design of the density. And yeah, it's multifamily housing, because the only way you can create housing that people can afford is to reduce the land cost. You know, whether you build for low or moderate or middle or wealthy people, the materials and labor costs are the same. So the only way to cut the cost is make it denser. You know, divide the land cost over more units. But there are ways to do that that look really nice. That's why this video, which I'll also send along, I mean, there's a guy named Howard Rappaport, who did 180 units in the north part of Milford, right near Willis Farms Road. It's gorgeous. He built with an amazing clubhouse and cabana and pool, and I mean, I can't see any town that wouldn't want that. Mika was there. We went to Wallingford, and a guy named Bob Wiedemann did 36 townhomes. They're lovely, and they're spacious, and they're nicely appointed, and they've got granite countertops. So, yeah, I mean, affordable housing has a bad name, because again, everybody thinks about, you know, graffiti and bullets flying through the air.
Respectfully, I think you made a misstatement earlier. I think you described some of those housing projects as experiments.
As what?
Experiments. Well, I don't think it's correct to characterize them as experiments. I think they were the result of direct policy that grew from racist sentiment that resulted in a policy of redlining. It was a very deliberate policy of discrimination. I don't think experiment is exactly what they were, and I don't think that's what we're talking about here.
No, I understand that, and I didn't mean to, you know, misstate. I read The Color of Law. We had Richard Rothstein down. I'm kind of well aware of what the Federal Housing Administration did and didn't do, so you're right.
And David, talking about the nice looks of affordable housing, I do have my poster left over from the Board of Selectmen's meeting where we presented different examples of affordable housing, and, you know, I'll just leave it up over here, but, I mean, you could see this is, you know, really nice developments that would really blend well in any neighborhood in Woodbridge.
So I'd actually like to follow up on both of those comments, and something I've heard, I think, from one of our organizations in the state, is this sort of missing middle of housing, this sort of housing that exists to kind of fill these sort of gaps in the marketplace, not always even affordable, but just, you know, the things that create a diversity of housing type and housing stock that allows people to, you know, meet their needs, whether it's the accessory dwelling unit that allows you to find a way to downsize but still have, connection to your former home, or provide a space for an aging grandparent to come move in with you, or the housing that, and this is dating myself, I always think of as Melrose Place, but the sort of the housing that's kind of a garden apartments in a sort of smaller, not high rises that are 30 stories high. What I'd love for you to do in sending those examples is send us the types of examples of places that have found either examples of successful developments like that, policies and programs that are encouraging those, whether they're how you would design your rules and regulations and even your plans of conservation development to encourage that kind of broader diversity of housing opportunities.
Yeah, no, I mean, Missing Middle is, used to be a fixture of a lot of cities, triple deckers in Boston and perfect sixes in Hartford, and 2, 4, 6, 8 units are great, and they're great for infill, and sometimes they're just the right thing for their surroundings. I mean, that's really the key, is to build to the surroundings, because what I've seen over the years is most people are not going to live in what gets built, and most people are not going to know anyone who lives in it, but all of them or most of them are going to drive by it, and their concern is that for those of us who took behavioral psych in college, we know that people care deeply about loss, and when you live in a beautiful town like Woodbridge, you don't want to lose the town that you have, so they're afraid. And again, I don't think that's irrational that the town is going to change. So it's really important if you can find ways to, whether it's 4 units here and 6 units there. In some places, like in a lot of Scrog towns, we're introducing them to developers not who do 200 units, but who do 30 or 40 units. Because that's what's to scale in those towns. And that's the key. A lot of the home builders for years only wanted to build single family homes, and now they're getting into Missing Middle housing. They're getting into 20, 30 unit multifamily home because they realize that's where the market is. And so there are a lot more developers to choose from. And like I said, if you want to have developers come by and meet with you guys and tour the town and look at sites that you're interested in, we can hook you up with them too.
David, I just had one other question. One of the tools that we learned last week at the Scrog Housing Task Force meeting was creating a affordable housing trust fund. And it's certainly an activity that we're looking into, and I know that Fairfield does it one way and Guilford does it another way, and there's different examples, but if you were like the housing committee, how would you go about trying to figure out what would make a good affordable housing trust fund? Where would we start in planning and trying to create this type of mechanism?
Well, I would talk to other towns. There are various ways to do it. Guilford just created one. Some towns do it by assessing a fee with every building permit. Other towns that have inclusionary zoning regulations have an opt-out for developers who don't want to include income restricted units in their development. They pay a per unit fee instead of creating the units. And that money, wherever you get it, I mean, you can take it out of the budget and create a fund if you want. But the point is, then you have to have an organization, whether it's a zoning board or an affordable housing commission or someone to administer that and decide how to use it. In Fairfield, Mark Barnhart, the economic development director, does that. And there are creative ways of doing it. So in some cases, you could take some of that money and help a developer with a couple $100,000 to close the gap he has in financing. In one case, what he did was, he said, no, we have a parcel that the town owns that they had just gotten from the state, and they purchased it and then rented it for $1 a year for 75 years to a nonprofit. I mean, so there are ways to do it. I just told you about all I know about how to do housing trust funds, but there are people, again, who we can hook you up with who know a lot more about doing it and how to do it.
So any more questions from the committee, because I want to open, I know our colleagues from the Housing Committee have been very patient. So perhaps, Paul, if you don't mind moving your microphone down like that way, a seat, and then
No, you're gonna need to
you need
answer,
to stay
so
there.
you get to stay.
Yeah, so if you can move that to like that next seat, I think we had, if you could come on up and introduce yourselves and,
Could you have him speak into the mic, so we can't hear anything he's saying in the back? Could you get a little bit closer?
Yeah. How's that? Better?
It's not a mic for the room.
yeah, it's not a mic.
Is it on, David?
It's not a mic for the room.
Yeah, it seems.
Okay.
Sure, yeah.
I don't know if I can get closer. Am I close enough?
Yeah.
Okay, great. My name is Lou Schaefer. I'm on the Housing Committee, and I've been so for several years when we even had the other name. And my comment was really probably more appropriate at the beginning of the meeting because it's really a point of order. And, you know, the Housing Committee has lived with the information that David and Ben have presented and Scrog has presented, and they've done a wonderful job. But the one comment I have and the one problem I have is that if it is a joint meeting, and I realize we know much of what Ben said, but it would still be useful if we had the handouts, those that are in the Housing Committee, and that we got the documents that you're mailing. Even though I've seen many of them before, it's still useful. My memory's not as good as it once was.
Yeah, well, I have a few more. I didn't know how many to make.
No, that's okay.
I'll-
It's not a criticism of you, David. You've done a wonderful job as far as I'm concerned.
I'll leave them over here.
Thank you. Other members of the Housing Committee who'd like to ask a question of David? Great. Any last questions from commission members? So David, thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to receiving materials through Chris as we continue to explore these issues broadly as part of our plan of conservation development process.
And be in touch if you need anything, we'll try to help.
Thank you, David.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks. Do you need to adjourn your housing committee?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the special meeting of the Housing Committee. Could I have a second? All in favor? Okay.
Thank you for attending.
Thank you. You're welcome to stay. I just
Yeah.
didn't want to, I wanted you to have the option to be released if you wanted to. Thank you all. So now we are still in our work session, and the next item of business is the application for the special exception permit for Nicole D'Angelo, doing business as Ms. Nicole's Creative Learning Center at 11 Research Drive. Do I hear a motion to approve the special exception permit under 3.3 M1?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion in front of us? Other than I think it is a great use of that space, and it sounds like they have a nice plan going forward and are following all the rules required of them by our relevant state agencies and other oversight commissions. Want to have further comments? Hearing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Hearing none. Exciting.
Yay!
Yay. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you so much.
Anything else in specific we need to do, Chris?
Nope.
Nope, good. Well done, yes. Tell them on vacation that it passed, yes. We've continued our changes to the zoning regulations, so that's no longer for discussion during our work session. And now, I think next up is any updates.
Thank you.
Have a happy 4th, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On our town plan of conservation and development process. Maybe Chris, any updates on the survey or?
Well, when the survey started, it had a very slow start. Mid last week, it only had 70 responses. Mika's sent out information, and Since then, we've gone up to 438 as of this morning. So truly, I need you guys and ladies to talk it up. You know, if you've got a Facebook site where you can post it, just post the link. You know, if you see somebody at recycling or wherever, just mention it to them. Both the link and the QR code are posted online. There's hard copies that are available from me, from the reception desk upstairs. They're over in Human Services, and they're also at the library. I do know that the Senior Center is going to be handing out hard copies later in the week and whatnot. So the other good news was the tax bills went out. You should have gotten some form of a tax bill with hopefully, you know, Park and Rec on one side and us on the other side. We're the important part on that side. And so hopefully we'll see more responses coming in because of that. So that's the big thing that we're doing right now, is getting those survey results. I have a meeting scheduled on Wednesday between Rob Collins and the GIS mappers from SCROG, who are going to be doing all the maps for your town plan. So they're going to be coordinating to see what maps need to get done. That list has been provided to SCROG. They've said then they'll be able to do all of the mapping that's necessary. It's just a matter of the timing of when the different maps come in. So the maps are starting to be worked on. So that's where we're at the moment. We're in that information gathering stage. Sometime in September, you'll have your first community meeting, and we'll dance around, you know, avoiding any school nights when there's back to school nights, any holidays that are there, or if you know of any other events that are going on that we should dodge around so that we can get the optimum response from the public. Please let me know so I can forward that information to Rob. And if there's anything you want forwarded to him, you know, don't hesitate to let me know. And Mika's been on top of it. He's always there.
And so in the calendar of events, is there, so how the survey will be open until?
The survey has now been extended until July 12th.
Okay. And so that data will be received and our consultants will summarize.
Right, then after it closes, they'll do their summary. You'll get a full return of what the survey results were, what the comments were, and then based on that, they'll be making a summary for you to go forward with how that public discussion will start. Where do we start looking at action items, those kinds of things.
And that'll help inform those convenings, the sort of
yes,
the meetings that we may have in the community. Just timing-wise, we don't meet in August.
No.
So, but we'll still receive.
There's nothing that you need to meet about in August. That's still an information pulling thing for them.
Right. And they'll send us via email.
Whatever I get will be forwarded out to you. Yep. And it also goes on that storyline that's online. So
the story map.
The story map. Yep. So updates will go in there. But it was very nice to see that jump.
Is there an actual target number that we have or hope for?
What you always hear is 2%. Mika's got a goal of 600. So we'll see. I think we can hit that. Of course, it would help if somebody went out to recycling and handed out stuff at the recycling center.
We're looking for volunteers.
Because I know the housing committee, which had an exceptional response to their thing, one of the things that they did was they went down to the recycling and they had the little sheets that I have that have the QR codes and the link, and they just handed them out to people. I've been hitting up people who've been coming in for dog licenses or building permits and whatnot, and you know, whoever I've helped, I say, oh, now you can help me, please do this. So.
Any questions for Chris on the process and where we are? Paul?
Chris, I just had one question. When I took the survey, and maybe because I'm not as smart as everybody else, but the map of the town seemed, I don't know if that matters, the demographic of where you live, but it wasn't the map wasn't labeled. So how do people know what part of town they live in geographically?
It's interesting because when I saw the survey, it was labeled. It was northwest, northeast, southwest.
Right, but my question is, if the and again, maybe it's irrelevant to the results.
The streets, I see what you're saying.
Right. So
Are you
It's
close
like
to
down
one of
below
the?
You
it, right?
kinda
I mean,
have
you had
to-
to read below it and kind of make some assumptions.
I don't know, I guess,
That's a
but
good point.
if
That's a good
the
point.
results are relevant, it doesn't matter if you're in the northwest or southeast, then it doesn't matter. But I just wonder, does it, I couldn't figure out where we're
They
off
couldn't
a
be
beach
any
or-
more specific than what was shown on that. They couldn't break it any finer down than they did, and they didn't have room to list
Put
all
a
the
map of
streets
streets
that
on.
were in
Okay.
that area. So yes, I
And were
guess
you
you had
close
a-
to the edge of like two zones?
The
I
top
live
is
off a beach,
north.
I mean, on Dales off a beach, I don't know.
It's interesting, because mostly around the center, you'd have a challenge. Most of the folks who I spoke with know that they, because they're more along the borders, it's easier to identify. I know I'm in Bethany, I know I'm in the northeast,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I know. So, but that's a good point that I
But if
didn't
that
consider when I
input
saw
question's
it.
really irrelevant to the conclusions, then obviously don't worry about it. If
And
there's
that-
if something they're trying to draw out of where you live and which quadrant in Woodbridge, then
And the demographics aren't as crucial to the survey as the actual responses to the questions. Because they understood that people might get tired from doing the survey when they got to the demographics and just skip them entirely, so. Kudos to you if you finished.
finished.
There you go.
You know, it also doesn't, does it record an email address anonymously? Because someone could just go online and just start taking them. Like, it's a
They
little odd how
they know where they're coming in from, because the email that I got with the listing said there were few duplicates, so they know whether or not you're taking it
I
10
think
times
it's
or
IP addresses.
It is.
whatever it may be.
Okay.
They
So
know
long
if
as
you're a
there's some
duplicate.
protection.
Yeah, they know.
Fortunately, there's right. Fortunately, it's one of those things where not a lot of people think it's great to try to fool it. But you're right, Jeff. I could live in Orange and go on online and do it. I don't know to what end, but
But they did catch a few, so there's at least some watching going on for that.
All right, good.
Any other questions at this stage? All right, Andrew, any report from SCROG?
Briefly, there was a meeting on May 9th. I attended virtually, as all meetings are virtual now, which is sad because 3 regional planners ago, we used to have pizza every time. And so there's no reason to go in person anymore. But there were 3 action items. All of them respected zoning map amendments generated by private persons from the town of Madison, the city of West Haven, and the town of Branford. 2 of them, Madison involved a residential to commercial district change to accommodate some business that wanted to come in. And West Haven involved electric vehicle charging stations. And Branford, family and group childcare. None of these action items were felt to pose a threat to the welfare of the Long Island Sound, nor posed any intermunicipal problems. There's another meeting on July 11th, and I understand our matter will be on the agenda then. Done.
Any questions for Andrew? Hearing and seeing none. Thank you. Kathy, report from the Housing Committee.
Yeah, a couple things. David Fink did touch on a couple of them. A couple of the members did attend the SCROG's Housing Task Force meeting last week, and we heard a presentation from Mark Barnhart and Peter Sosa. But just some of the takeaways I had, in terms of and I call it multi-housing development or multi-unit development. I never use multi-family development because of the connotation that comes up that you brought up. I'm happy you brought that up. But that multi-housing development is the largest taxpayers in these towns, in Fairfield and in Windsor. And they just talked about how it's such a key component of economic development for their towns. And, you know, they really stress the need for, in terms of housing, they stress for towns to undertake planning initiatives, to really just go out and start planning your strategic locations where you'd want housing, you know, so you could make the determination as to where the housing should be and not have somebody come in and make that a decision for you. And again, working, you know, as we were thinking about working together to create more amendments, you know, it probably is something where we're going to have to be working with the Economic, you know, Development Commission to work on this together to figure out how we'd want to like propose, you know, amendments that would come here for this board to decide. And as I asked David, one of the tools is Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which we're really interested in trying to get that started, because I think that would be, you know, really helpful when you talk about the middle housing developments. It just makes that more feasible, be it for, you know, pre-development or planning or assessments, or even help with land acquisition to create some, you know, missing middle type of affordable housing. And then the other work we're doing is to come up with recommendations as to what should be in the POCD in terms of housing. And you know, when we work on that, you know, we'll have to, of course, come to this commission to vet those recommendations. So that's the work of the Housing Committee, and our next meeting is on Wednesday.
Anyone have questions for Kathy?
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
So, Kathy, this is not meant to be a criticism of you or a criticism of Mr. Fink, but there have been several references tonight to sort of ideas that people have or connotations that something might imply, or sort of other innuendo, and I want to state for the record, I don't know what that means. And I would ask that any kind of connotations that are believed to be implied not sort of be assumed to be understood, and that any sort of expectations or ideas be explicitly stated. I want to clarify my comment to Mr. Fink that, you know, even a reference in passing to a housing project that was the result of a policy that was explicitly discriminatory is not at all germane to the discussion of what we're doing here. We're not trying to avoid the appearance of discrimination. We're doing something entirely different. So I just want to make sure that as we proceed, we don't sort of wave off, you know, connotation to say we don't want to do something that has a certain connotation or implication, because we're doing something entirely different, in my view. And if I'm out of line, you know, please let me know. But I just wanted to clarify the nature of, you know, why my blood pressure gets up when we sort of begin to confound different topics.
Right. Thank you, Ann. Any other questions, comments? Report of the zoning enforcement officer.
I've just been busy with the POCD.
Okay. Any more accessory dwelling units being built?
Not since the last time I talked to you.
Okay. Mika.
I just, Chairman, if I just wanted to remind the commission of the woman on Siani Street, I think it is.
Oh yeah, we're going to get to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, we're not done. And it's related to, we did receive correspondence.
Yes.
Which is where I wanted to sort of merge the discussion.
I gave you the letter that Rosalie dropped off today,
So this came in this morning,
this afternoon, yeah.
this afternoon. Where Rosalie asked, as did Ms. View, when is this going to stop? Or when is this going to be
I
over?
have directly asked that question to the developer and have not successfully gotten an answer. I think part of the problem is that he has all this material on site that is not really wanted by anyone, because it's not topsoil, it's shale. And there aren't that many uses for that kind of thing. Although truthfully, I had someone who came in today who was interested in filling in a swimming pool. And he said, do I have to fill it all in with soil? And I said, as long as it's clean fill, it's okay. And I said, I think I know someone who has something that you could use at least for the bottom part. So I did get them in contact with one another. Not that I'm trying to, sell anything, but I figured if we can move this project along by getting rid of the burden that's on the site, because that's part of the problem, is that he can't start building until he gets rid of that material.
And we've granted him an additional,
He's got a year, and every time they come in, I say, they've got a year. There was the one morning where he started at 7:56, and as soon as I heard that, I did send him an email and said, you start at 8. And since then, he's been towing the line, and they've been starting at 8. So, within the limits of what I can do in terms of what's there. I mean, they did mention the water going out on the road. There's no new water going out in the road.
It was a sheer cliff before then.
It was a sheer cliff before then. There is drainage that kicks around from the abutting property that drains onto this because there's a swale at the toe of the slope coming down from Ariel. And in December, when there was some of this flooding that happened, was when we had 12 inches of rain. So there were very few places that I know of in town that at that point weren't flooding, which is not to be facetious or anything. It's just that when we're dealing with the weather that we've been dealing with, that's what happens.
Chris, does the gentleman's comments, the developer's comments supersede the permit or vice versa? So I know it was referenced either in the letter or from the woman who spoke that it was 3 to 4 months and was only going to get quicker. I mean, I know I empathize with her. If that was my street, I'd be at wit's end. When
You
we
gave
sat
him
and
a
heard
permit for a year. He has a
it,
permit
so
for
it's
a year.
regardless. So period, end of discussion. And did you communicate that to the residents that the permit lasts for a year? From
Repeatedly.
8, I forget, it was 8 to 4, 8 to whatever the period was. So they have the right to do this for 9 hours a day for a full year.
When does the year begin?
When it got renewed,
May
we
1st.
were told it might just be like another month ago because we renewed the original one-year application.
Before you went to renew it, I had contacted him because we were still working under this permit, and I said, if you're gonna need a renewal, you need to think about it now. Oh no, I'm gonna finish by May 1st. And then I was told that the equipment broke. And so then he came in and you did what you did. And why it's taking this long, I don't know. When they came in today, they said he hasn't been working he hasn't worked consistently every day. So it's not like it's every single day. There was a period during the middle of the winter where he didn't work at all. And so then the question was, why isn't he working? I don't have an answer.
But the bottom line is because the permit was renewed, there's no recourse from the commission or the town or the residents. Is that correct?
You issued him a permit, and in good faith, that's the
Yep.
permit that he got.
So there's no recourse until that year is up.
Correct.
Understood.
Except with the possible exception of any town ordinances that would
Yeah,
apply that
well,
we can enforce.
there is do we have a noise ordinance?
We do have a noise ordinance, and the noise ordinance gives a broader scope in terms of some hours, so you narrow those down. There is a decibel rating,
That's
but
what I was
that's not
curious.
under the jurisdiction of us, that's under the police department.
So if they would have to go over to the police department with that.
And, truthfully, I can contact the chief and said, we've had repeated complaints about this noise. Could you kindly go out and take
A decibel reading.
a decibel reading to see if it's in compliance with your noise ordinance or not? I mean, that's easy to do.
Can you do that?
Yeah, most
Thanks.
certainly.
Can I ask also that in Ms. Rowland's letter, Mrs. Rowland's letter, the stockpile material on the site continues to grow. We've not seen much, if any, action to truck it off site.
That's this pile
That's
of
the
rock
share.
right there.
I mean, that's just something that part of their process, I imagine, right there.
That's what the material
it
that they
out,
broke
right.
up.
Yeah.
And typically, in most earth removal things, you have more of an earthen material in terms of it being topsoil or subsoil, something that's actually more marketable.
Right.
Shale is not something that most people are looking for.
We'll have to take it out to build the houses anyway, so it's
just a matter of time.
just a matter of time.
Well,
But it could be that till the end of the noise, if they can't get rid of it.
Yeah.
Or it's in the way, there's so, I don't know if folks have been out there recently, there's so much piled up there, it's hard.
Ultimately, it'll be in the way, but while they still,
No, it might even currently be in the way of him.
Yeah, I think
actually.
it's in the way right now.
I mean,
Like-
can we make them move it?
He has to have a place to move it to.
Well, that's
not the
just,
question.
that's a question of money. Does he have, you can get rid of anything. Yeah. At a cost.
Can I ask, but is that our issue?
North
Maybe there's no
Racebrook Road.
place to put it.
Yeah.
put it on North Raceboro.
Well, it is in the sense of it continues to perpetuate the issue, the noise. So-
If it's the reason why it's taking so long, then that seems like something we have to figure that out.
What,
There's a statement in Mrs. Rowland's letter that she believes Luciani Properties deliberately misled this commission when they renewed their permit. Did they make any statements that we might believe is misleading? And if they did, is there any recourse, to Paul's question?
to that end, Chris, is there anything in writing that he indicated how long he thought it would take?
No.
The other, there's every incentive for him to do it as quickly as possible, because presumably he's developing this land to sell it, and he's carrying this land, and so if I were doing it, I can't imagine a reason to mislead us. I mean, I guess if he thought it was truly going to take a year, he would say it would take less to get us to, because if he was worried, we wouldn't extend it. But in terms of, I would imagine he's trying to go as fast as he can. He may be constrained monetarily. I don't
Early on, and it's not mentioned, it's relevant, but I thought he said like at hearing number one, however long ago, he was potentially building it for his kids. One kid was going to one house, one kid was going, I could be wrong. But I think I remember something about his
I think that
kids
was the
living there. Which
subdivision
maybe that's why he's not as motivated as he would be if he was going to be on the open market.
I must not have been there for that. I don't remember that.
Yeah, to repeat myself, I don't think it's going to be progressive to work off of assumptions about his motivations. And I also don't think it's very productive for him to either fail to answer or to give incorrect responses to our questions. Do we have any mechanism for bringing him here to answer some of these questions?
If you want him to come, just tell me that you want me to invite him.
If he's
I
not going to
don't-
answer your questions, I think he should come.
I mean, I can email him again and,
Because I don't think.
see if I get a response, and if I don't,
Sure.
then because you're not gonna meet now until September.
Sure.
Yeah, so an email to him with a clear statement of the duration
Yeah,
of
I can-
the continued hammering, his plans for removing this mountain of shale, and a timeline for that. Other questions? of him?
Is there a requirement for a safety fence, as referenced in Mrs. Rowland's letter?
There's a fence at the top of the slope, but not at the bottom, because he has to have access to the site. And
Thank you.
it's a small, I mean, in all honesty, excavation regulations are typically meant for larger sites. They're not meant for this smaller parcel. So he's constrained by having to access onto the site and get trucks on and off, and a machine and whatnot. But he
So
does have fencing at the top of the
fencing is
slope.
on the top of the, so people don't go off the cliff on the top.
Yeah.
It's now created. Other questions of him? Those are the
So
two
I'll
key
ask him
ones.
about
And
length of hammering and removal of the shale.
and request to respond by a date certain, and if he.
Want to give me a date certain? Or
What's-
you don't care, as long as I just,
You just need to give him a date.
Yeah, I just need a date.
Before our meeting, and if he doesn't respond to you by then, you can then inform him by email that he needs to be
we'd like to
here.
have him come in. Okay.
Chris, I'd like to also get a copy of the permit just to see, to our attorney, our town attorney, to just see if there's any other recourse in terms of any commitments that have made, any breach, any, whatever there might be.
I can certainly get it to you. As far
I
as I
appreciate it.
know, he has not breached anything. He has a porta potty there, and then I've had people complain that the porta potty's next to the road. It's the only place to put it because he's working the back part of the site. And as I said, you want the workers to be able to have a appropriate place to do
Everybody's
whatever.
got a potty.
And
No
so,
argument there.
I mean, unfortunately, the person who spoke with you this evening, actually, when she was talking about going to her parents, she actually went to China for 2 months. So that's about as far away as she could get. And it is, you know, a challenge to be able to live there.
And you'll also make a request to the police commissioner to
Yes.
get the decibel. Before we get, I know we have minutes still to approve. Before we get there, and I want to go watch the U.S. men's soccer game, which is already started. So,
That was in that.
there was a request for public comment. We normally, my default is yes, if someone wants to speak, I'd like to give them the opportunity to do that. I am curious whether we would want to, for future meetings, actually dedicate an opening 10, 15 minutes of our meeting, as I've seen some other towns do, not necessarily for planning and zoning, but to have a sort of open mic that allows folks who want to come in to sign up and have 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes at the microphone before our meeting starts. Some commissions actually start their meetings 15 minutes earlier for receipt of those public comments. I just wanted to float that as an idea. We don't need to decide it, and maybe that is a request to Chris to formally put that on our work session or work agenda for next time.
Sure.
To see whether that's something the commission.
So it's no application is open, it's just they can say whatever they want about zoning in the town, right?
I mean,
Yep.
that is the,
Well, those are good questions.
That would be part of
So
the.
I've more traditionally seen them at town council meeting. I don't know if
Sure.
does
Yes,
actually
we
the
do.
board of selectmen have an open.
It's appropriate for the board
We
of
have public
selectmen.
comment.
We can have that discussion of whether we want to.
I
You wanna go
actually
watch the
started
soccer
doing that
game,
with the
right?
housing committee.
Yeah, but that, I don't want to, I just wanted to have that discussion.
I'll put it on the
next time.
September
Thank you.
meeting.
Okay, last item is, we have minutes from June 3rd, 2024. I'd entertain a motion to move.
Wait a minute, who moved it? Yanni.
I wasn't there, but I read them, and I also watched that.
I will second the approval of the meeting minutes of June 3rd. Any comments, edits? Any discussion of those minutes? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All abstains for not being there. Thank you, Chris, for those meeting minutes. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.